F123 career mode too easy? You're just getting to the top in a season despite starting at the bottom? And this video is made for you because today I'm going to share 5 tips which I found really useful when making F123 My Team career mode harder. So tip number 1 is actually really simple. You just have to do it yourself. So the first thing you've got to do is when you head into My Team onto this screen, you will have to choose your sponsor, your teammate, and your engine. So for the sponsor, it's pretty simple. Most people go for Xenon Dynamics because it's the best one. It gives you the most cash and one of the highest weekly income and a really good goal bonus. Personally, I go for X Forming because their goal is to finish 10th or better in the Constructors' Championship, which is definitely achievable when there are teams that are like AlphaTauri who don't tend to do as well. And their goal bonus is 2.47 million, which isn't altogether that much. But the reason I didn't choose a goal bonus which is smaller, for example, Moon, which is just to complete a full season, and the goal bonus is 1.65 million, is their weekly income is a lot larger. So their weekly income is 286,000 per week, which is higher than even Xenon Dynamics, which is the best sponsor widely considered. The weekly income for X Forming is actually only 264,000 a week, which is the smallest out of all the sponsors, which is, in my opinion, the most important. So I go for X Forming. The next thing you'll have to choose is your engine manufacturer, and it's pretty obvious which is the worst one. You could say Mercedes because they don't have the best power, but they've got really good durability. Ferrari, because they don't have the best durability. You could say most people tend to go for Red Bull because they have a sort of equal balance between the two. But for me, I go for Renault because that means I have bad power and bad durability. So that's the engine that I choose. Then for the driver. For your driver, I personally go for the most expensive one, Felipe Drugovich, Cleo Picher, Enzo Fittipaldi. You know, that crowd. But if you want to make it harder, that is what I strongly encourage you to do. Your teammate doesn't actually affect you that much, so I would just recommend going for the best teammate possible, which in this case for me would be Théo Pourchaire. Depending which engine you pick depends where you start when you begin your career mode. If you pick the Mercedes or the Ferrari, you'd end up starting around the 7th or 8th best team. If you pick the Red Bull, I think you're about the 9th. And if you pick the Renault, you are dead last in 11th. As you can see, I am currently 11th and the worst team behind even AlphaTauri. So that puts into perspective really how much you can affect your team's development. Tip number 2. Another way you can slow down your growth as a team is by putting down the resource rate for you and up for the AI. Now, this is a pretty simple one. Many people do it. And for example, YouTubers like Arava, they do that and they still find it much too easy for them. But many people don't, and I thought I'd just put it in anyway in case you didn't know. So what you have to do is you go onto your settings, you go onto your career settings, you scroll, you go down and you put, and here you have all this. So you can put your cash rate for the AI increased and decreased for you, increased resource rate for the AI, decreased for you, and then the acclaim as well if you want to. The acclaim doesn't really make much of a difference actually. So you could leave that on or off. I personally, if I was going to do it all, I might as well do the whole thing, you know, turn it all off for the AI and up for me. So another way which you can slow down your growth on F123 is where you get your resource points from. So that would be only from practice and quick practice if you want to. Or you could just do the full thing, which probably would overall earn you less resource points, as quick practice is pretty much guaranteed to always get you the resource points. So when you've got your R&D from practice, as you can see, I have got mine here. Where are you going to spend it is the question. you start off, if you start as newcomer as I have in this example career mode, you start off with 0 out of 24 on the aero, 0 out of 23 on the chassis, 4 out of 23 on the powertrain, and 2 out of 27 on the durability. So what I would advise if you want to make it more difficult for yourself is go straight in and buy your durability upgrade. Prioritize your durability if you want to grow slower, because the durability actually doesn't improve the characteristics of the car. Actually, just it only improves your reliability. So how likely you are to finish the race and not have engine failures, and how much your engines wear. The powertrain, chassis, and aero do improve the car in their respective areas, so I wouldn't advise going for that if you want to grow slowly. But obviously, if you've got R&D to spare like I do here, it would just be foolish not to invest in your respective items. So tip number 4 is about what specs you have. Now, I would advise, if you want to slow your growth down, is only upgrade the marketing and the personnel for the first bit. Or if you only want to slow down your resource point generation, don't upgrade your resource point generation on the chassis and aero. And also, this is a very important point, do not upgrade your analysis on the personnel, because your analysis determines your teammates' experience, and your teammates' experience determines how many resource points they bring in from practice. So that is very important. Despite how cheap it is, do not do it. And finally, for my best and favorite tip in this episode, the last tip number 5, it is at the start of your career mode. It's very, very important. So you've done all your drivers, you've done all your sponsors, you've done all that, and now it's time for you to answer Natalie Pinkham's questions. So the first couple don't actually make a difference at all, so you can just really answer any of them, but then your next answers really, really matter. Choose which department to focus on, which is very important. It determines what spec 1 you get for your first season, which is very important because this will allow you to make 2 upgrades at once in that specific department, and the build time and quality control is better, and you get more resource points, which is really important for upgrading your car. But a lot of people actually don't know that you don't have to answer a question at all. There's this little button at the bottom right that you can see which says no comment, and if you click that for every single one of your questions and don't focus on anything, you might be thinking, what spec are you going to end up with? I'm thinking the same as you, but I found out yesterday while testing for this video that it actually leads to you getting spec 0 on every single one of your facilities. So you start with no resource points, as you can see here, spec 0 on every single one, and you have got to upgrade all of them manually by yourself. So that is extremely difficult for you, especially as the owner, because you don't have the money, you don't have the resource points starting as a new team. And if we advance a couple days here and you see how many resource points we get from the first day, as you can see, instead of 150 resource points which you normally get, you only get 100. So that reduces that as well. And